I've been doing several videos now on this wood stove. I built it several years ago, actually, for my other boat, and but I installed it in this boat, and I burn wood in it, and I burned wood in it several times. It works great. And when I designed it, I wanted to also be able to burn liquid fuel in it. And but I had a problem, and so I started experimenting with liquid fuel. And some of my previous videos, if you watch those, you'll see what I had been doing. And but I started out wanting to burn fuel in a can inside the stove first, so kind of to isolate it and keep it small. And so I have a can in here, and I've tried several different cans, several different types of fuel. The first liquid fuel that I put in here was kerosene in a can, and it was just a cranberry sauce can down the bottom, about 3/4 of an inch full at the bottom. I poured a little alcohol in there and lit it on fire. Actually, I didn't pour alcohol in there, not in that one. But I lit the kerosene on fire, and it burned for an hour and a half, and it was only about 3/4 of an inch in the very bottom of a can like this. And then so then I tried diesel, and I didn't like diesel because it smoked a lot. There was a lot of soot, and I don't like the smell of diesel. And so then I decided to burn Crisco vegetable shortening, or vegetable oil, and this works really good, and it doesn't smoke, and it doesn't smell, and the only problem is it's a little expensive to be burning, but so I wanted to have the fire burn as long as possible to where I don't have to tend to it, because with wood I have to constantly be feeding this about every 20 minutes and then poking the coals, and it keeps me busy. I mean, just it's basically that's all I can do is sit here and mess with it. So I decided to try liquid. So I did diesel, and I filled 2 cans up almost full, about to here, and they both burned at the same time, and they burned for 2 hours, and that's still not a very long time. Then I tried the Crisco, and I filled the can up to almost full with the Crisco. Same thing, about 2 hours of burn time. And what I really need to do is not even use the can and just put Crisco down in the bottom of the stove, because it's a lot bigger diameter and a lot more room down there, and I can put a lot more liquid fuel in there to burn. The only problem is when I was burning diesel, I knocked one of the cans over when it was on fire inside, which I was worried when I built this, that I was worried that the weld down here on the bottom, I had to weld this bottom plate on. There's a plate here that I weld to the cylinder, and the welds need to be water or liquid tight, and there was a couple spots. I don't know if you can see the oil from the diesel left spots where I have a couple leaks. So I have some leaks here and over here, and then on the side here. They're real small, but I had the fire raging in here, and diesel was spewing out. It was on fire inside. Luckily, the diesel coming out was not on fire. And so it's just liquid, and I had to sit here and mop it up, and I couldn't put the fire out because it just keep leaking out. If I put the fire out, I'd have to stand here and sit here and deal with mopping up the diesel so it doesn't flow out and get all over my boat. So now I'm thinking I really need to be able to burn fuel down here in the bottom, some kind of liquid fuel. And so Crisco, as you can see, is a solid when at room temperature, but when it heats up, it liquefies. And so I need to get this can out of the way here. So I come up with another idea, so I'm going to give that a try right now. And because the welds leak, what I'm going to do is I'm going to line the bottom of the stove on the inside with some heavy-duty aluminum foil. And then I'm going to put Crisco on top of the foil, and I'm going to light it on fire and see what happens. And as long as the fire doesn't burn up the foil, because aluminum foil will burn. It'll actually burn and melt. And so I'm going to give this a try, and hopefully it's not going to turn into a disaster. I guess the good thing is if worse comes to worse and the foil starts to burn up and the liquefied Crisco oil starts oozing out of these welds, I can shut the stove down by cutting the airflow off. I got a damper up here, and then I got an inlet air vent here on this butterfly vent. So I can open that up. And so I can shut these down and the fire will shut off immediately. And I guess the good thing is, at least if it's spewing out of the welds, it's not diesel. It'll just be Crisco. So it'll still make a mess, and I'll probably still have to sit here and mop it up or figure something out, or just let it keep burning, and sit here and tend to it. But so I probably shouldn't put a whole lot in the first try here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some foil and put it in through the opening here, and then pat it down around the bottom, and then make the aluminum cover the bottom, and then all the way up to about here. So because the welds are down here low, so hopefully that'll be okay. A lot of soot in here, so I got some gloves that I'm going to be wearing to do this. I also have some ash still down in here a little bit from when I was burning wood, so I'm going to vacuum that out right now. So I just made this this nozzle for my vacuum cleaner hose, and I made it out of it's just a paper towel cardboard insert on a roll of paper towels. So I had to kind of make an angle so I can get in here. So I'm just going to vacuum up any ash that's in here. Okay, I'm just going to pull this off and throw it away. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to kind of bring my sleeves up a little bit here so I don't get them on any soot on my shirt, but at least it's a black shirt so it won't show. The problem is it'll be soot on my shirt sleeves, and then I'll get it all over the boat. So put these gloves on. Looks pretty clean in there, so vacuum worked good. So I'm going to go ahead and spool some of this out. Nice big sheet. The thing is, it has to be all one piece going in here and on the bottom and up the sides to here. So when the Crisco melts, it doesn't leak through the foil. So that's going to be the hard part. So I'm going to kind of roll it up and then push it through the door. Kind of, oh boy, I don't know. I don't think this is going to work the way I was hoping. I'm going to pull this back out. I got another idea. I'm going to do this instead. Kind of more like what you do with a kind of a parachute kind of thing here. Maybe if I go like this. And go in the door like that. Kind of push it in like this. Once I get it inside, just point it downward, go to the bottom, and then start splaying it out. Okay, feels like it's working. So the trick here, or the reason for this, is I can put a lot more Crisco in here. And what I really would like is for this to burn like 8 hours straight. So I don't have to keep messing with it. And But yeah, it feels like it's going in. If I was smart, I'd probably put another piece on top of this one, just to be safe. I don't know. I think since I got these gloves on, I might as well just go ahead and try to put another piece in here. Okay. So I'm just going to kind of fluke it like you do a hanky. You put your handkerchief in your tuxedo pocket. Okay, I think it's going to work. Feels like it. I was worried I was going to mess the bottom one, the first one I put in. I was going to move it around too much. But I think this is good. So now I got 2 layers. That should be good. Be nice if this foil lasts. It may not last very long. I wished I would have done a little better job on the welding. I should have tested the welds. I should have filled this up with water after I welded it to check, see if there's any leaks. Or something that's even thinner than water, because I'm burning fuel. Fuel's thinner than water. Like if I would have poured some, actually rubbing alcohol would have worked good, because it's flammable, but it's thinner than water and it's not too volatile. I could use a lower percentage rubbing alcohol to test it with, but I didn't do that. So the other alternative is that I can take the stove out of here, which is a real pain. Thing's heavy and it's bolted down, but I could take it out and take it over to my sister's farm. They have welding equipment over there, and I could re-weld it again around the bottom. I bet I have to weld it. I have to grind a slot for the weld, and then I have to weld it and then grind the weld down and then repaint the stove. So it'd be quite a little bit of work to do that. But if I do that, I'll definitely put probably some rubbing alcohol in it, make sure that the welds aren't leaking. Because if these welds weren't leaking, I wouldn't have to do this with the aluminum foil. So I think this is going to be fine. Okay, now I'll be able to put a lot more Crisco in here. Now, there's another problem I just thought of that might happen. And when this foil heats up, it might crinkle in like this, and so that could be a problem. You know, I have a trick that I was doing when I actually had the fire burning in here with the Crisco. Is once I got a fire going in here, I just hold the spoon with Crisco like this on the spoon, and then the spoon would heat up and the Crisco would melt and just fall right off the spoon. I'm going to go ahead and pour some rubbing alcohol. This is 70% isopropyl alcohol. I'm going to pour it into the spoon. This is a pretty big spoon. Oops, dripping a little bit. It's all right. This alcohol evaporates fast. And I'm going to just pour it on top of the Crisco and light it on fire. So let's see what happens here. Now, I may have to throw a paper towel in there while it's burning. I'm going to use the paper towel to light it. I want to see if I can get it to light without putting the paper towel in there. That way I won't have any kind of ash down in there. Okay, this is exciting. All right, let's see what happens. I got a little old Crisco right there. Just going to clean it up a little bit. Okay, here we go. This might be really cool, or this might be a disaster. So we'll see. Okay, there it goes. It's starting. It's burning. The damper's open. Let's see if it goes. So far, so good. It's going to be a mess if the foil leaks and the Crisco starts to ooze out of these bad welded areas. Oh, this ain't looking good. Looks like the alcohol's just going to burn out before the Crisco gets going. If that's the case, I'm going to just dump a bunch of more alcohol in there. We'll see what happens. It's it looks like it's going to go out. I don't know. That's not looking good. All that needs to happen is the Crisco to liquefy and then get hot enough to burn. I think it's going to go out. Yep, it went out. It's still going, so I have to be careful. I don't want to... Boom. Well, it melted a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to try this again with more alcohol, but I need to make sure that damn thing's out completely. Yes, there is definitely melted Crisco in the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pour some alcohol, see if I can get it in there straight out of the bottle. And hopefully it's totally out. Now this is not real smart. If there's any flame in here and I'm going to pour this bottle in there, yeah. But I don't hear it burning. I don't see any flame, so I'm confident it's out. So I'm just going to pour some in. Ooh, that's quite a bit. Now try this again, and it hopefully will go this time. Okay, it's gonna go this time. I'm pretty confident. Yeah, that's gonna get it hot enough to start boiling. Okay, we got flames coming out of the door, so I'm gonna shut the door. Oh, it's puffing out smoke. That could be a problem too. We'll see what happens here once it gets going. It might be too much fuel in the bottom of the stove. So what happens is you don't get a good air fuel mixture, and you have too much fuel burning and not enough air, then it starts to smoke, and then it'll soot up the pipe. And I just cleaned the stove pipe. Matter of fact, I just made a video on that. But I know it's going to go this time. And you got to be careful when you're cooking when you're doing this with Crisco. Evidently, there's moisture in the Crisco. It's vegetable. It's 100% vegetable oil, but there's water in there. And if you take a saute pan and heat it up with oil in it, and then you pour some water in there when the oil's really hot, it splatters, and you don't want any of this to splatter out and get you in the eye. So let's see what happens. It may need some kind of wick, and I do have some carbon felt left over from my other experiments. I was using carbon felt as a wick, and I may have to put some carbon felt in here. Problem is the carbon felt will burn up, even though it's not supposed to. At least the carbon felt I have burns up. But, okay, it's kind of, I don't know. It's going to go out. It needs some kind of wick. It just went out. Totally went out. All of the Crisco is melted. I don't see anything seeping out, so the foil seems to be holding. So now what I'm going to have to do, I have no other choice. I'm going to have to put, I guess I'll put carbon felt in there and light it. So this is some carbon felt that I had left over. It's supposed to be 100% carbon. I'm kind of doubtful that this that I have here is 100% because it was burning up, and if it was 100% carbon, it really shouldn't burn, or very little. But my other experiments, it was burning up. So I'm just going to go ahead. I'll put some alcohol on the carbon felt so I can get it started. And then it'll burn for sure once I get this in there. But I just want to be careful here. I don't want to spill it all over. Okay, I got carbon felt with some alcohol on it, and I'm just going to kind of roll it up, push it through the door. See if I can kind of get it to stand up inside. Try to do this without touching these sides here. Okay, there we go. Now, I should be able to get it to start. I'm going to take a little more alcohol with a spoon and just put it on the outside of this carbon felt. So I can start it easy. And there we go. Okay. Now this will burn. I know for a fact this is going to burn. Unfortunately, I was hoping that the Crisco would burn on its own in the bottom, but it looks like it ain't going to. I mean, if I get the stove really hot, it probably would, because it would start boiling and then it would burn easier. But I know I could put diesel in the bottom and it'll burn, or I could put in kerosene in there and it'll burn without a wick. Yeah, so it looks like that's going to be it right there. So that carbon's going to burn up. I know it because I've already made several wicks with it and it burned up every time. So I don't know what else. I'm going to have to figure something else out. I may end up going back to using the can. I mean, I could put fuel like kerosene or diesel. Probably diesel is what I'd be using. In a tank higher up than the stove, and then have a tube come down. I'd have to drill a hole in the stove, but this pipe here is a high pressure steam pipe, and it's 3/4 inch thick. And yeah, I wouldn't look forward to trying to drill a hole through it. I'm sure I could, but if I took the stove out, I could use a cutting torch and blow a hole through it. But and then what I'd have is I would have it liquid fuel that would come from a tank, gravity feed into here, but it would have to have a special regulator to regulate the amount of fuel flowing into the stove. And that becomes a very dangerous situation, because if you have more fuel flowing into the stove than that's burning, then what'll happen is it'll start putting too much fuel in the stove, and then that could flow out and cause a major fire. So I'm not real comfortable with gravity feed fuel systems like that, though they're very common and a lot of people use them. But so at any rate, that's okay. So that's going to be fine now. It's what it's doing is it's wicking up into the carbon, and the Crisco in the bottom is not on fire at all. So it's just the wick itself that's burning. And so I'm pretty sure it's going to, looks like it's kind of wanting to go out, but it shouldn't, because I've done this before with Crisco. And I got started with a little alcohol, and then once the Crisco got hot, it started to really go. But that's not much flame right there. It looks like it wants to go out. It's not looking good. I don't think the Crisco's getting hot enough. In the small can, the Crisco would start to boil real quick because the can was small. It looks like it's going to go out. But you can also see that it's not going to put up very much heat. Yeah, it looks like it's going out. I may just have to put in some more alcohol and do this again, but I need to make sure that sucker's out before I attempt it. Dang. Okay, so what I'm going to do, make sure that sucker's completely out. I think that it is. Okay, I'm going to try this again. Hopefully this ain't going to flare up. Ooh, that's hot. It's boiling. So it just made I poured this alcohol in, and I could hear it. It started to sizzle. So that means that, whoa, okay. Well, that was exciting. Yeah, I just singed what little bit of hair I have on my hand here. Okay. So yeah, you need to be careful while you're doing this stuff. That was not real. The reason it did that, it flared up like that, is when I poured the alcohol in, there was no fire in there, but it was hot. And so what happened was the alcohol started to boil. It started boiling, and when it does that, it atomizes. And so when I put the paper towel in there with the flame on the end of the paper towel, it just woo. So yeah, let that be a lesson to me. Okay, so I'm okay, no big deal. I've been playing with fire since I was a little kid, so yeah, but you got to be careful when you're doing this stuff. And another thing about these stoves, anything that burns fuel, especially when you're in a small space like a boat, or if you have an RV or something and you have a alcohol stove or a propane stove, you need to have ventilation. You have to have a window or something open, and because the flame is going to take all the oxygen out of the room. And the problem is you can die of hypoxia, which when this happens, basically you just kind of fall asleep, and it can happen fast, and it can happen it can actually happen to where you're not really even noticing that it's happening. So it can be really, really dangerous. So if even a kerosene lamp on a boat can kill you, even though it's a little small flame and it's just a lantern, but you got to make sure you have a window or some ventilation in the boat, adequate enough ventilation that you have plenty of air to breathe. So, and I wouldn't recommend going to bed with any open flame burning in the boat at all. And me personally, I like, when I sleep at night, the colder the better. I don't like to sleep in a warm room. I like to sleep in a really cold room. A cold room, when I have adequate enough blankets, so I'm warm, that to me is the best sleep that I can get. So now I have a feeling it's going to burn. It's burning down all the way on the outside. I don't know. We'll see. We'll just let it go and see what happens here. And if it goes out this time, I'm just going to call it a night. And because I got to cook dinner here and it's getting late. And I'm getting ready to cook some wild caught shrimp and some rice and some I cook, I'm putting all kinds of stuff in it. So it's going to be, I'll cook it in, I have a wok, and I'll cook shrimp and onions and garlic and bamboo shoots and broccoli slaw with shrimp. And I'm even going to put some fresh pineapple in it. And I use coconut aminos is what I use to cook it with, that and sesame seed oil. The damper shut off by itself. I was starting on dinner in the galley over here, and it was rip-roaring hot, burning. And the damper shut down by itself. The gravity made it turn, and the stove shut down. Basically it went out. So I put more fuel in it. The Crisco got underneath the aluminum foil and it's leaking out of the weld on the other side a little bit, but not bad. And so because the damper closed down, I got soot now. It's sputtered out onto my table here. So I got some little like raindrops of black soot on my oily soot from the Crisco on my table. But at any rate, so what I'm going to do now is I got it going again. It's really hot, and I'm cooking dinner. Going to be cooking some wild caught shrimp with Himalayan rice. And I cook my Himalayan rice in coconut oil and a little bit of Himalayan salt and water in my pressure cooker, and it's really good. I mean, it's the best rice I've ever eaten. It's incredible. Coconut oil really sets it off. It has to be a white rice. You don't want to try to cook brown rice in coconut oil. I tried that once and it was awful. So at any rate, I'm going to get ready. I'm going to go ahead, and I got the rice in the pressure cooker, and I got it right here. And I'm going to go ahead and put it on the stove, and I'll be cooking the rice here on the stove. So I'm getting ready to cook shrimp, wild-caught shrimp, and I'm going to cook that in my wok on my inductant stove top over here. And I'm going to be using sesame seed oil, and then I'll throw in some garlic and onions, and then I'll throw in some bamboo shoots. They take longer to cook, and get that going a little bit. And then I'm going to throw in some broccoli slaw, which is like it's shredded broccoli with I think there's cauliflower and carrots in it too, looks like. And it's really good, and I got to be careful not to overcook that. But I'm also going to be throwing in some water chestnuts, and I'm going to put some pineapple in it. So that's kind of give it a little bit of a Polynesian flair to it. And I've done this before. I've cooked this dish once before. It was really good. And I use aminos, coconut. I use coconut aminos, and I got it right here. So this is basically a very low lectin diet meal that I'm making. The rice probably's got the lectins in it somewhat. This pressure cooker doesn't vent, so I got to be careful because it can explode. It's a German-made, very well-made pressure cooker. I've had it for years and years and cooked a lot in it, and it's really good. So we'll see if this is going to work out. I may have to just shovel in some more of this Crisco in here to get it hotter. You see I got a good flame going in there now. I'm going to add some more Crisco. So I'm just going to go ahead and hold the spoon over the flame, and the spoon gets hot, and then the Crisco will just slide right off. Just like that. So it's sitting on top of the carbon felt right now, and the Crisco, it'll just melt and go right down into the middle of the carbon felt. And then hopefully that'll be enough heat now. I think I got enough in there now that that I'll be able to cook this rice. And if I was using wood, I've cooked several times with wood. I mean, it works great with wood. I can get the fire really hot, really fast. And this is the first time I tried cooking with liquid fuel. So we'll see what happens here. There it is, cooking with Crisco in my wood stove. So Crisco's the fuel source for the fire, and I have my rice now, my pressure cooker on top of the stove, and we'll see if it cooks. I'm pretty sure it will. The aluminum foil, unfortunately, is the heat's making it all kind of crumple in, and some of the Crisco oil got underneath the foil, so I don't know if this is going to work. Unfortunately, if I had welded this better, the welding rods that I used to build the stove was given to me, and they're really old, and they were contaminated with moisture. So I didn't get really good welds, because welding rods that are contaminated with moisture are just like a saute pan with oil in it. You pour a little water in there, when the oil's real hot and it sputters. And so the welding rods, some of them would sputter really bad. And when they do that, you can't get a good weld. And so unfortunately I have a couple pinholes in the weld on the bottom of the stove. So I may have to take this stove out and re-weld it again and fix that, because if the welds weren't leaking, this would work awesome. I mean, I could just put the Crisco in there. I didn't have to worry about putting any aluminum foil in there or anything, and it would burn fine. I don't know any other way to stop the those little pinholes from leaking. So at any rate, my pressure cooker is definitely getting hot. I can barely touch it. And so, yeah, this is definitely going to work. So if this video was helpful or entertaining, please like and subscribe.